And we're live,
Let's see.
and we're still gonna die mad.
Yes, yes, we are.
It's going on my tombstone. I'm Teresa.
I'm Liz.
Uh,
And yes, we were going to this time give a little bit of an introduction. Not much to say. I'm not a political expert. I'm just interested in politics, slightly obsessed, slightly addicted.
Very
Um,
interested.
and Teresa and I have been in an ongoing discussion about American politics since we met through volunteering on Elizabeth Warren's campaign in 2019.
Okay.
And so we were like, all the bros are saying what they think, so let's just put our
Let's
stuff
put
out
it out
there.
there.
Just put it out there. So
Put it on the airwaves.
so
So
we're here on
welcome,
a
welcome to our conversation.
yes, on a
Happy to
Friday
have you.
evening. Yeah, on a Friday evening. Cheers.
Yes. Cheers. TGIF. All right, it's been a week. It's been another week.
Has it been 2 weeks since the last time we talked, or three?
Yes. Oh, has it been two or three? Yeah, I think it's three actually.
Been
Yeah, we're
three.
gonna try
A
to do it
lot.
more often. So a lot has
Yeah.
happened, a lot of water under the bridge. Last time we talked about Epstein, elections, and a little bit of hope.
Yeah.
Um, so we thought we'd start. We were both saying we haven't had as much time this week to follow the flood of in the zone. Just been surfing on top of it. Um, and the zone itself is one of the stories that did kind of break through this week, right? It's like who's giving us the news? How are we going to
Yes.
get our information? That's been an issue for a long time, but really broke through this week with this impending Paramount deal.
Yes.
And that really bears upon every conceivable issue we could think
Yes.
of. Hmm.
Yes.
So, do you have thoughts on it, Liz?
I mean, I two thoughts just from engaging on, I mean, mostly on Twitter, but is one, the way that this has been reported and the way it was reported when it broke, I guess this morning, was it when this morning it broke or yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
Time has no meaning. When it was broke, when the story broke, it was kind of like as if the papers had been signed. And there were a
Yes,
lot of
yes.
like,
I noticed
we're
that too.
cooked, it's over,
Yeah,
and
this is happening.
not just from random people, like
Mhm.
from, people who should know better, people in the media.
Yeah.
And then it started to be throughout the day, people like, actually, there are a lot of legal hurdles for them to get this through.
Mhm.
And I think the AG from California came out and said we're gonna investigate this to the full extent of California law. And then at the end of the day, like just an hour or two ago, there was a leak from, oh gosh, is it, what's his name? David uh, something Z. I can't remember his last. The CEO of Paramount
Mhm.
leaked
Mm.
that it was going to be at least 6 to 8 months before this anything was signed. And if it
Right.
doesn't go through, they're still going to get $7 billion. So don't worry about it. Sort of like don't panic at my.
Oh, I was going to lose sleep over that. Thanks,
Yes.
Dave.
So obviously they realized that this is an extremely unpopular move. Also, obviously, it's right on the heels of I don't know which CEOs were meeting with Trump and blah blah blah. I mean, it's like all of it, it's the way things are working under Trump, where someone goes and gives him a golden calf and then he gives them whatever deal or whatever. But it is my feeling is that this is not a done deal at all, and that the people who are the only ones who have resisted Trump this whole time, the only ones who have had any kind of, you know, real impact on stopping Trump, if this becomes part of the public conversation, I think it can be stopped. I really do. Because there's so many Democrats. It's already Gallego coming out and saying we're going to break up. There's so many people who want to prove now to
That
the
there.
people. So I'm not going to, who knows, because it feels like mostly only bad things ever happen. But I also felt like part of the strategy with all these fascists has been to come in and say it's done deal.
Yes, fait accompli. Just bow down. Nothing you can do
Yes.
about it. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm
I
like,
even think I would even go further almost, although I don't think I've been following it as closely as you have, but even if it went through, I'm not sure it would have the desired effect. I mean, I think, sure, it's definitely media capture, but if there's any silver lining to what's been going on in general, and I think this would apply here, I'm not an accelerationist, but with a couple of things, it's maybe not terrible that people can't deny it anymore. No one's going to be yapping on about the liberal media bias anymore. It's going to be undeniable in our face, who's running, and um, maybe something had to give. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they brought this on themselves. I mean, seriously, like, things have been so badly covered. We've been so failed by the media.
So,
I told you
so
I got into this sort of argument with my sister about all this, and she's very like, she's really just like, does not believe in these media institutions and just wants to go over to independent media completely. And I was sort of like, well, we need the institutions because they have certain types of legal protections and they have,
mhm.
resources.
Resources, deeper pockets, and
Exactly, exactly.
I
But at
mean,
the
and on
and I,
both ends, right? I mean, you want to have national institutions that can afford to send correspondents everywhere in the world, but you also want your local news, right? It's not good enough for us all to be reading the same things way up here.
but I do wonder like a little bit with this Zateo, which seems to be doing really well. Mehdi Hassan's
Mm-hmm.
and I do subscribe to it, and I don't always catch all of their stuff, but I do uh, take in quite a bit. Um, I wonder when are they? I mean, what about like these like some like the now Anderson Cooper is leaving CBS, which
Yeah,
good for him, good for his
yeah,
reputation,
yeah.
and he's going to come out of this smelling like roses. And if they are going to
I
take a
mean, CBS needed him a lot more than the other way around. And
yes.
in terms of like an individual career, that's a no-brainer. He's
So it's like, why don't some of these more like, I mean, Zateo has a real political point of view,
mhm.
but something more similar to like public media, but I don't understand why there aren't mid-level rich people getting into this space because it really feels like if Zateo and all these independent places are getting subscribers and Substack and all these why doesn't someone make a new TV channel? I don't know. Like, wouldn't it be possible, like, if you set up a TV channel that's like owned by like a worker owned a co-op type, and maybe I don't know, maybe it's just like too hard to get onto the air or something, I don't
I
know.
mean, I don't know. I think it's already been sliced and diced so many ways. And what we're losing again is sort of the national touchstone where we're all, watching Walter Cronkite in the evening, plus your little local window on your community. I don't think any of the things we're talking about really replace that. And otherwise, it's a lot of personalities competing. I mean, even though I agree with you about Anderson Cooper, it's another personality,
Yeah.
sort of out there on their own. Actually, I've heard I don't know if you've been hearing this about maybe Jon Stewart running for president or Stephen Colbert running for president. Uh, I mean, clearly the TV to White House pipeline has worked for a lot
Yeah.
of people. First, it was Hollywood to the White House. Now it's the little box, and maybe it'll be podcaster to the White House next time around. Yeah. Well, I'm pretty
I
sure Tucker.
I mean,
I'm pretty sure Tucker is running.
oh. And he's actually of all of them the one I fear the most because
Yes.
he's so much smarter. He's so much smarter than the other ones. I was also listening because I told you I was just listening to some clips on Pod Save the World. I just wanted to get caught up on like world news very
Mhm.
quickly.
Yeah.
And so I was listening to his interview of Huckabee, which I had seen among the leftists that I follow, like a lot of people being like, he did better journalism than almost anyone in the mainstream media, which is true. And
which is frightening.
Yeah, and had the access to do it. But I also this week was listening, and I didn't have time. It was like, in the morning when I was on the way to work or whatever, um, to somebody who has written a book about, his rise.
Yeah,
And
I've listened to some interviews with that guy.
yes, and
Hmm.
I mean, he's a very smart operator. He's like
I wish I could argue with you,
way
but
smarter than Donald Trump. And
okay, well, that's a low bar.
yeah, so look, but hey,
Well, yeah. In the
you
area of
know,
communication and propaganda, Donald
yeah,
Trump is
yeah,
hard to beat. Yeah.
yeah. So
Well, I want to backtrack real quick though, because journalism, yeah, I think that again, we're sort of so accustomed now to seeing it as just another kind of performance. And of course, in many ways it is. We all think, oh, just give me a microphone and some researchers and put me and I could do a better interview than, half of what I see. And that might be true, but of course that's not all journalism is. And I mean, we had a good example of that this week. I think when NPR first broke the story that the DOJ had been had left out some key material from the Epstein files, material that this was not actually new material. People like Kate Mann have been out here talking about this witness. We all knew that there was a witness who had been interviewed multiple times by the FBI claiming she had been raped by Donald Trump. We can't say it often enough. Raped by Donald Trump at the age of 13. And I mean, the FBI interviewed her 4 times. So clearly they thought she was a credible witness. Otherwise, they would have just dismissed her as a kook. But it didn't become real until NPR said it was real. Then some other, and by the time it got to the New York Times, people were like, oh, okay, well, then I guess we better take this seriously. When people lose faith, like your sister, when they lose faith in independent journalism, we have a problem as a society, right? We can't just be following, the best people from the debate team who can do the best interviews. That's not all it's about. There's the institutional
yeah,
credibility.
that it is. There's the institute. That's exactly it. And I just think like, it's very frustrating because all of these institutions have obviously failed us, and they failed us like in ways that are so subtle that it's sometimes hard. It's like, it so much has to do with framing
Mhm.
and, the where they turn Sauron's
Yeah,
eye, whatever, that is
yeah,
like more than I
yes.
feel like, but at the same time, I retain my trust in the fact that if they put it in their newspaper, they believe it's true and that they have sources I mean, it's not that often that they publish things that just aren't true. And that I just can't believe, like, as much as I love many of these podcasts, I like, I, if we were to say it, I wouldn't want anybody to trust, like you can't, like, at
We
what
are not
level,
journalists.
yeah, at what level of independent media do you start to trust? For example,
Hmm.
uh, what's his name? Ken, oh gosh, he's always breaking. He's always asking for people to leak to him. Oh God, I can't.
Hmm.
He used to be at The Intercept. Or look at The Intercept. Here's a good example. Reality Winner leaks to The Intercept because she herself is a leftist and is seeing that the leftists are saying, oh, it's not real with Russiagate. So she's like, no, I'm going to show them because I have access to these things. She leaks believing that they will treat her in the way that the New York Times or the Washington Post would have treated her, or the Guardian or whatever, because the people that run the Intercept, they came from all of this, um, the WikiLeaks stuff and all that stuff. So, but they did that with the New York Times and the Guardian. And so she doesn't get these protections. It's either they either amateur hour reveal her, or I reveal her on purpose. It's hard to say. You don't know because it's a black box and it's owned by a billionaire. Same thing with Dropsite. Now, Dropsite, super interesting reporting on stuff that they will not report in the mainstream media, having to do with, the kinds of just psychotic, war shit in Gaza, like the terrible, terrible things. And I trust them on that because they come with like a lot of backed up reporting. But it's owned or it's published by the daughter of the guy who owns the LA Times, who is a MAGA billionaire, and who, just like, though he got off a little bit more than Bezos, he killed the LA Times when when they wanted to endorse Kamala Harris. He killed that endorsement, and then she
Oh, right. I
said,
remember that
and then
story.
his daughter said, well, he did it for me because I didn't want to support her because of Gaza. So there's been some stuff lately now with Dropsite reporting things about AOC on there or tweeting things about AOC and her record on Gaza that are just purely lies. And people are in the comments saying, why are you saying this? She didn't do that. She didn't do this. Like, why are you, who have this responsibility as a journalistic site, like I mean, I don't know, they're not really a newspaper, but whatever they are, journal, I don't know. And why are you lying? And they're just doubling down. So it's like, there's interesting work going on at these like smaller places, but I don't necessarily trust them more than I just think that they're covering things that the mainstream media won't cover. So
Right.
anyway, sorry, I went on a long tangent there, but
No, it's great. It's really true. I obviously getting back to our refrain that the media has failed us. And as you say, a lot of it has to do with the framing more than, that they've been factually incorrect. But there you can see the analogy to what's happening politically, right? That it's this vicious cycle that at the end of the day, even if it, you could say, well, I'm sure someone would make the argument that the reason the New York Times still has credibility is that they've been so careful and they've, played both sides. I personally don't believe that. I think actually the opposite. I think the fact that they've been so um, clearly put their thumb on the scale, that is just a direct analogy to what's happened in our political institutions. Everybody's veered right, and that has actually undermined people's trust in all of these institutions. So it eventually redounds to the benefit of the right, even if they didn't mean to do it. And the which, in many cases I think they did mean it, but it's not about intent. It's just about what the effect is and why. I mean, many books will be written on how much they failed us.
speaking
And
of that,
again, yeah.
did you follow what's happening in Kansas right now with the trans people's driver's license? Have you been follow and is it just, yeah, is it
I
also
mean,
birth certificates?
following it on social media, yes.
Because I mean that is one where just directly
Yes.
high up editors at
Yes.
or owners or whatever took their personal politics, like bigotry, and
Bigotry.
pushed stories that they might not have been untrue, but they were framed in some, I think there were some untrue things in those stories, but they were framed in the most ridiculous moral panic way that this is now like, this is affecting people's lives who are the most, like some of the most vulnerable. There's many vulnerable groups who are under extreme extreme oppression right now, but like, it
So, but how do you think that, I mean, obviously I don't disagree on how terrible the coverage has been of and the moral panic surrounding trans people in the United. It's been this way for a long time. I'm just wondering if this step into, because I think what's happening in Kansas is no, I can't see how you cannot call that fascist. What is happening? I mean, to strip people of essentially, we all know what a driver's license is in the United States. It is a state issued ID. It goes way beyond just being able to drive your car. It's often necessary for voting, for example.
Mhm.
It's a huge violation. It's this close to, it's like, yellow star, stripping people of citizenship. There's just, so I mean, it wasn't really a joke, but I'm like, people in Kansas everyone should make an appointment to discuss the status of their driver's license, flood the zone, make them deal with all of them at once. Of course, people aren't going to do that because no one wants to play around with these very important papers. But it's
Mm.
just like if everyone had worn a yellow star, they wouldn't have. No, I mean, we've got to throw some sand in the gears. But leaving that aside, do you really think that it's the press coverage that sort of emboldened Kansas to take
I
this step,
I think that we're
or
we're kind of like far down the road, but what I do think is that sort of um I don't know, it must have been sort of it started before the backlash to Me Too, but it really got going with the backlash to Me Too. That from liberal quarters, whether this was Jesse Signal or there was a group of American journalists, and then also the same thing was going on in Europe. And in some ways, I feel like it's in the UK, it's gone. I mean, I don't
it's
know
gotten
the
absolutely
exact.
haywire? Yeah.
It's gone terribly there, but mostly because J.K. Rowling
J.K. Rowling.
put
Mm-hmm.
so many resources into this and is such a huge name there, such a huge. And it's like I haven't been to the UK for many years, and then I went 2 times within the last year, and it's like the impact of Harry Potter on that country. Like you see like fake Harry Potter stores everywhere. It's like she is freaking huge there. So I do think that this is one of those situations which is the most
When the real moral panic should have been about the real live royal family, not the fake
exactly.
wizards.
And I think that this is one of those situations where when something is coming from the left or the liberal and the conservative at the same time, it is so much harder than because you don't get like what protects so many rights or whatever really is like there's like a partisanship around it or something. And so because it felt
Mm-hmm.
like, well, we're not going to stand with you and we're not. And so and weirdly the kind of strange like mirror image of this is like now you can see that the change is happening so quickly on Israel and Palestine because when things come from both right and left, things happen faster and it shifts. It's just like a greater shift, which I don't want to compare those two things because where I'm pro a shift on Palestinian liberation and I'm anti a shift on bigotry and the oppression of trans people. But I do think that your responsibility as like a liberal person has to be to protect people's rights, even if you feel a little bit funny about it. And even if you think a little, like if it makes you a little, like you have to, like you can't consider yourself a liberal and then just choose one little group that's like, they seem a little gross to me. I'm like, I don't get it.
Certain,
I've never met one, like you
well,
can't.
arguably, women were in that group. Women
It
who couldn't
very
get
much came
pregnant.
from it very much came out of quote unquote feminist circles, and it goes all the way back to second wave
Well,
bullshit.
I meant that women are in also absolutely what you said. Of course, it's came from feminist circles, but also there has been, I think we can say very broadly that there was a liberal failure to protect people's rights. And a lot of, I mean, what about the fact that the Democratic Party, candidates were told, do not use the A word, the abortion, right? Until it was gone, until the right was gone, the word was anathema, right? Um, we did not see the Democratic Party protecting people's
No,
rights, and that is a big reason for the drop in trust
yeah,
in the party and in institutions writ large.
yeah.
And Anyway, that's interesting about it coming from both sides at the same time. I hadn't really thought about it like that. But I guess I had only gotten as far as thinking that trans people are a population that the right very much thought it could get away, still thinks it can get away with targeting without paying any price.
Yeah.
I am not sure if they've done the math on thinking that it's because there are also a lot of liberals who are squishy
Mm.
about trans rights, or if they are just going to force it down our throats and just wager that no one will stand up for them. And I mean, obviously, there were a lot of think pieces about Minnesota that they miscalculated there on how willing people actually
Mm.
are to put their bodies on the line to protect their
Mhm.
neighbors. And they were proven wrong, but I'm not even sure sometimes if they were proven wrong or if they just didn't think that far. They just they
Yeah,
assumed
I think that people have a do not I think that like elites, I can't think of like a better word because it is something with both Democrats and Republicans, do not have a very good theory of mind of like what the
yes,
moral calculations of the common person are.
yes,
And
yes, yes,
like of course you can stroke bigotry in people and you can get that going for a long time. But people also uh I just think like you know uh Americans have a certain conception of what their country is, and they're very proud of it, and there's a reason we have to do the Pledge of Allegiance. It's kind of the downside of the Pledge of Allegiance is that you have sold us all of these stories about what America is, and a lot of people just sort of believe those stories. So
right, right.
like I do think that there's a way in
And
which
identify with those stories
and
and
then
have abs
identify
and
and
have skin in the game in one way or the other.
exactly.
As you,
Exactly. And you might be able to get convince them like, oh my gosh, there's all these, and it's always that they try to convince people that things are unfair because we saw the whole thing with like, DEI and all this stuff.
yes,
It's always like, this is unfair. But it's never, but once that switches and they realize, oh no, actually the unfair part is the other way, it's much harder to hold that whole, I don't know, coalition or whatever together. It's like the numbers start to drop then. I mean, this is what it seems like so far. And I do, I've been
right,
very like heartened by like
yes.
different viral clips of people speaking, especially always whenever it's like some kind of doofusy white guy and you're like, oh, he's out there? Like, oh, good for, bless you, bless your heart. Like, so like,
Heartened by the heartland.
yes, and then not even just in Minnesota. I saw one in like New Jersey and
Yes, I think
like
there was a viral one
and
from
I'm
New
just like
Jersey.
I do think like a lot of people who do not pay very much attention to politics still have a pretty, they might not be leftists, but they have a
Right.
pretty developed moral code that is not necessarily like very connected to politics, but if it
If
connects,
pushed and if it's connected. Yeah, and I think another link there I would see is that I do think you can stoke, as you say, you can stoke people's bigotry and you can stoke people's fear. But, there is an upside to the fact that Americans have it pretty good. It's not that easy to scare people to that extent that they lose all sense of, as you say, who they are, who they thought they were as Americans, who they thought that. I think the guy that we're thinking of from New Jersey was upset because he'd seen school children run away from police. And he was like, that is not who we are. We are not, we don't instill fear in our children of
yeah,
these authorities. And that's also a really striking image of what we're talking about losing faith in, you know, the cops on the street. I'm sure you and I, with our politics, have often questioned the motives of cops. But, we still think school children think that the traffic cop or that if they're in trouble, they can go to a cop in your little community.
yeah,
And sort of normies seeing that break down isn't something they're going to respond to with fear. They're going to respond with other
yeah.
emotions.
Yeah. And I do think like, you know, on the one hand, it's naive, but on the other hand, and I see that so much, living here in Sweden, if you do not have a certain level of trust in your government also can't function. And like
That's
the
right.
the US it is a pretty low trust when it comes to like the government. People don't really trust the government very much.
Right.
But like for whatever like level of trust they do have, like yeah, when they feel that that is broken, and of course, this is very much, of course, there's a racial lens to this, there's the class lens, and all these different things. And of course, this is, people from a very privileged point of view. But if you can get people from who, I don't think these people are privileged in like an economic sense, but let's say privileged in like their, way of moving through the world, white people, cishet white people. Like, if those people start to turn against you, like, and we still have fair elections and you're not, and also just like you said, like how do you instill the necessary fear? And this has been, who was this that was talking about, who was, oh, maybe this was even all the way in this Mark Carney speech where he was talking about like the fear that was instilled in people behind the Iron Curtain in order to allow these like authoritarian governments. I mean, at the beginning of all of these authoritarian regimes, whether it was like, when uh, Pinochet took, I mean, Pinochet had to kill so many people. He had to kill football fields full of people, and these were not just, I mean, not like these were people that were highly educated, and I mean, he had to really scare people. And like it's like this with all authoritarian regimes. And I am not they it doesn't feel like Trump has a plan to instill the necessary fear. I don't like, are they going to go do another 50, 100, 10,000 Alex Preddies? Now, if they do 10,000 Alex Preddies, maybe people would, I don't know. I don't know
Well,
what the
I
number
think
is.
the two that they did in Minnesota had the opposite effect.
Exactly.
Made people angry.
So what's
But
the
right.
number?
Well, okay, so here's one thing he could do. Something he seems to be planning to do. He could drag us into war.
I know. Oh God. That's been the elephant in the room of this conversation tonight.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that's part. I definitely think that's part. I think that's been a big surprise to people, Trump's foreign policy. Um,
Not
I
to me.
don't think,
Sorry.
everybody's he's just an isolationist MAGA, and maybe he'll do a little, some wheeling and dealing with the Middle East and enrich himself, all which he has done and continues to do. But I don't think people saw things like Venezuela, Greenland, and now Iran coming. Um, I was just on a call with an expert on Iran, and he mentioned, which I didn't know, maybe you knew this, that um, our participation in the strike against Iran last year lasted exactly 45 minutes. So, like, shorter than most video games, in and out.
What was the deal? Why? I don't know about this at all. What was the deal? Why was it like that?
I don't know why it was like that. It's a good question. I think he just got in there, did a strike, and got right back out. Just kind of did his buddy a solid and pulled right out again. And I think that's probably what people would have predicted more or less from his foreign policy, right? Just a little bit cowardly, a little bit non-committal, just sort of playing around with his friends or the people he
His
thinks are
toys.
his friends.
Yeah.
Um, but what we're looking at now with Iran, and this is why it's the eternal question with Trump: how seriously do we have to take him, right? And how afraid should we be?
Well, because the thing is that there are certain things, it's the World War I kind of situation where if you hit the right, if you just or hit the wrong lever, then things unravel
Been out of
of
control very
themselves.
quickly. The
And if, I mean, I just was listening a little bit. they can annoy me a little bit, the Pod Save the World guys.
Mhm.
Because I mean, it sometimes just feels like, anyway, whatever. But they were talking about, that a lot of the generals that were killed in the 12 days war were they were actually the sort of older, let's be very, very cautious generals, and that the people coming up are like, no, we've learned that if we hold back like we did last year, that we will gain nothing for it, and we have to show them that we're serious. And you know, like, yeah, I mean, ultimately, probably the United States would win a war against Iran. I mean, I don't want to go through that. I don't want to go through that full. I don't know what that reality would look like. It seems extremely horrible to me. But whatever people are imagining, it is going to be so much worse. It's going to be so much worse if they actually really get into this. And I'm very disappointed that this has not, that it just feels like there, I think because he's approaching it so casually. It's kind of like everyone else is approaching it so casually too, which I will give Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey. They seem to be, I will give them credit. They seem to be the only ones that seem to kind of be operating on the same level as MAGA, where they're like kind of like they're in some kind of like, you know, they understand the points at which they need to be pushing back, and they're the ones getting through this like vote about the war powers now. Um, but no, I don't know, Teresa. It's so scary to me. I like it's one of those things like I just don't want to think about it. It's so stupid. It's so, so stupid.
Yes.
And it's really unclear why he's doing it.
Yes. Very unclear.
My guess is that uh, between the Epstein files
Yes.
and the bad economy or badish economy or the low poll numbers, like, what he's, they, because that was also weird with Gallup, stop, like for the first time in 80 years, not doing approval anymore.
Mhm.
Like obviously they know what his numbers are. And so I'm like,
And some polls did come out that showed that
oh, there's other
they're
polls.
terrible.
There's
Yeah.
other polls, but it's just like, obviously like someone was pushing someone, there some backroom deal was happening there. And I just,
But
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
let's just follow this through because I honestly I don't I've heard those explanations obviously and intuitively it makes sense that he would be looking for not only a distraction but a way to look more presidential and I think he'd like to be a wartime president, but he'd also like to do it without, any real responsibility or because he I think it's not that he doesn't know what he's doing. It's just I think he's a very weird mix of, not having enough fear, but also being a coward.
Hmm.
So um that's why I thought things like getting 45-minute war perfect, or, in and out in Venezuela with no Americans getting killed. That's exactly what you would
That's the
expect.
kind of thing he likes.
But that's not, as you were saying, that's not what this would be if he really went through with it. That's not what this would be at all. And I don't see what the calculation there is about how it would help him politically. I mean, we are not in World War II here where we're all going to hop on the bandwagon and be like, rah, rah, US. That hasn't been the case for any of the wars in our lifetimes. But I think what does make intuitive, emotional sense to me is that he wants to scare us into submission. So
Yeah.
basically, just we're at war, people. This is very serious business. You all need to get in line, or think. So in a way, I mean, and the question is, where is his pain threshold? Like, how bad could it get so where he still thinks it's of use to him? Um, he would rather have
What did the expert that you
I mean,
were,
the expert said a lot of the things that we have said so far in that he said his objective is completely unclear. There is no, it's just not clear. Why? why? Why now? What would he be trying to accomplish? And I think that's why people are going very quickly for these kind of, I don't know if it's even domestic explanations, but just kind of personal
Yeah.
explanations, right? As because we all know that's how Trump makes decisions. Right? How does this benefit him personally? But it's not the old fashioned calculations where it's like, well, this will make me more popular. It's
No,
just,
no, that's
I
true.
think he's trying to gain more respect somehow.
Yeah, respect and maybe control too of the state, like a kind of like I mean, I don't know if he's thinking of it that clearly, but I'm sure that his little fascist cadre, Miller
Yeah.
and Hegseth and the rest, if we're in a serious war, then we get more control. Like, yeah,
Right. And it's hard not to think, I mean, now we're going, a little bit into tinfoil hat, but I can't help but recall how excited he was when Zelensky told him that, in Ukraine, they suspend elections during wartime.
yeah, I don't even think that's tinfoil. I think that they are every single day practically now in some way signaling that they want to steal the election. So, I mean, that's just seems to me
It's just some more spaghetti they could
more,
throw at the wall,
yeah.
right? But even if it's not exactly that, it's something like, again, being a wartime president heading into the midterms, he's got to think that that's better for him. Even if it's a disastrous war, maybe even especially because maybe, again, he's fighting like all the rest of us in this attention economy. How do you get people's attention?
Yeah.
Start a war. That's always been his go-to, start a conflict. Now
Yeah.
that he's got the reins of power, he can start conflicts at a very high level
Yeah.
and get us all
Yeah.
to focus. And I've been saying this for attention is his drug of choice,
Hmm.
right? He's
Hmm.
and if he's not getting enough, he's going to up the ante and up
Hmm.
the ante. And uh, that is an extremely dangerous game. And as you say, the big surprise, not surprise, disappointment, is that others are letting him get away with it. They should know, it is their job to know how high these stakes are, and that we should not be letting this degenerate lead us into war. So, speaking of the degenerate leading us, I don't think either of us watched the State of the Union. We didn't do
No.
that to ourselves. I can only take so much, but we saw coverage of it. We heard about it. Um, Heard about some reactions to it. I was hoping that a lot of Democrats would sit it out, and quite a few did, right? Do you know the number?
I
I
didn't even, I didn't. And I know we said, I didn't find, I didn't see any lists online. I kind of
Any
just,
list. I
I
feel
saw
like the number
several of my
35
faves.
was floated, but I'm not sure if it was that many. And then
I,
others disrupted.
yeah, and the disrupting thing to me, I don't get it. And
Mhm.
I get it on, okay, let me see this. Ilhan Omar, as you know, is my favorite because I love her attitude. I just really think I think her politics are very similar to mine. And like when that guy went after her and she just like turned and like, like she's got moxie. She's got
She
moxie.
does.
She's really got moxie, and I like to hear it. She never holds back. And I just enjoy her in so many ways. But I did not think that, and I understand that her way of living her life is never back down, never
Yeah.
give ground.
Yeah.
And I think maybe it was the same for Rashida Tlaib as well, because they were sitting together. But I didn't think it worked because I didn't think they were holding ground. I thought they were in his circus. And
Right.
I thought that um, I thought their dignity, not by interrupting, but just by being in the room with him, I felt that, and I felt the same way about Elizabeth Warren, because I was going to tell you that story that I had about that.
Hmm.
But I felt that to be in that room with him, and it was the same thing. Oh, which is he's in the House of Representatives in Texas, and he has
Al Green, who held
Al
up the
Green,
sign.
and he held up
Yeah.
the sign. And I was just like, I feel like we're beyond that, guys. Like I feel like we're not watching it. He's not legitimate. He's a pedo. He doesn't deserve to be up there. It befouls
Absolutely.
the office, the room. I'm not going to be there. I'll be there tomorrow to do my job. He can go in there if he wants to. I'm not going to give him any more attention. And Jamel Bowie said that, and I really agreed. You know
I
that
agree. And that was said
nothing was
also about the speech he gave recently in Europe, where it was they everyone should have either not gone the room shouldn't have been that crowded to begin with. And once he began his fascist grandpa ramblings, they should have stood up and walked out. It's the only dignified move.
yes, yeah.
I would have been fine with standing up and walking out at a certain point
Yeah, or
or
be all
coordinated.
there, and when he comes in, everybody get up.
Everybody gets up and I mean,
Fine,
students
whatever.
manage to do this all the
But
time.
I honestly think just not showing up because anything they did to bring attention to that speech is a win for him. I
I
truly do.
agree. I agree with
And
you.
so I really didn't like it. And the other thing, so a friend of mine who is, he's a leftist. I wouldn't even say he's a progressive. I'd say he's a leftist, but like a Bernie guy, you know. And he shared a picture of Elizabeth Warren standing up and doing, a standing ovation for Trump. And I understood because, I'm on the algorithm that gives me all the Elizabeth Warren news. I understood that she was standing up because of this insider stock trading or whatever, and Trump mentioned that, so she stood up, and it was some kind of message to the other Democrats. I knew that that's what she was doing.
Right?
I understood that that was the context of it. But ultimately, when you enter that, and this is what I get so like disappointed with so many people in politics, and I think one of the people who probably is the best at like surfing this is Mamdani. But like
Yeah.
when you enter into a zone of attention like that, you you have to think of all the different possible ways it can be read. So even if your intention is, I'm going to show the Democrats that won't back me on this stock trading,
Right.
thing, it looks like, and of course, as soon as I told my friend, I sent him like a clip about it. He's like, "Oh, I'm taking it down." Like he wasn't gonna. It wasn't like he was interested in spreading
Hmm.
untrue things. But I was like, "How would you have known? You saw a picture of this on social media that
Right.
it's a big picture of it's a Trump and she's standing there clapping, and you can tell no one else is standing up. The Republicans weren't going to stand up for that. But it's like these kinds of like people need to be thinking in when it comes to these kind of images. And then we as regular people have to be thinking, how is me spreading this image? How is it, you know, what am I
Contributing to
accomplishing? What am I accomplishing by this?
right.
Because this gets into my whole thing of, we haven't spoken since AOC and Munich and all of this, of all of
Hmm.
this critique of AOC from the left,
The bashing.
the bashing, and to go back to my left versus right and them coming together on this thing and the centrists and everybody just deciding it was like, it was like Elizabeth Warren with Medicare for all in November of 2019 all over again. So, where it was as
Hmm.
if everybody was suffering some kind of mass psychosis of like, oh, she's the worst speaker ever. And I watched it's like one awkwardly long pause, but otherwise nothing that you could call a gaffe sounded more intelligent than 90% of Democrats.
Right.
And
And then the way the New York Times transcribed her words with every
oh,
and an
oh,
ellipsis, and then
oh my
go,
God.
as everyone knows, the way they
No,
transcribe Trump is, I mean, they take a scrub brush and just wash it clean. It's
yeah,
unbelievable. But I
unbelievable.
mean, your thing about it coming from both sides, I mean, it kind of, I know this isn't what you mean, but it just reminds me of this sort of mythical space that we believe exists, called the center in the US, which, seems to be where all of these publications are sort of aiming their pros at, right? And if that, that sort of misunderstanding that is objective truth, right? If
Mhm.
so, so if both sides are saying it, then it must be true because
Yes,
they
yes,
can't agree on anything. So if they agree on
exactly.
something, there's where the truth is. And that
Yes.
is just bass backwards, right? That's
Yes.
not how truth works.
Mhm.
That, and there really is, it's, this has been a frustration for, 10 years now. This sort of, all the talk about polarization, and then, so, sort of like racist, like it's worse to ascertain that there is polarization than, you know, to be polarized. So if you say something that somebody considers to be too far left, or, you are part of the problem, you are
Yeah.
contributing to the polarization. One of the reasons I've always hated that word. And I definitely think, because, it's not polarization. If one of the poles is way off the
Yeah.
cliff
Yeah.
and the other one is still in reality, and the job would actually be, if you're in the job of truth telling, which is what journalism is supposed to do, would be, dragging them back. And instead they kept running after
Yeah.
the other pole. And
Hmm.
now we're all in the middle of the
Yep.
ocean.
Hmm.
Um, but I think in terms of AOC, obviously there's the gender
Yeah.
problem, and this is the same, right? Both sides have now agreed that we cannot elect a woman.
Yeah.
We've tried twice now. It's failed. So I guess there's consensus on not being able to elect a woman in this country.
Yeah, women get two tries and you're out. Not even three tries and you're out. After
You
how
know
many?
what was interesting? I think this was last week.
47.
I saw the UK has had its first female cabinet secretary, and I didn't realize that there had never been a cabinet secretary.
What?
That, yes,
What?
yes.
That's
And I was
crazy.
like, well, they get so much credit for having had a couple of, odd prime ministers
Mhm.
who were women, but no cabinet secretaries.
I mean, my frustration with the AOC thing, or with the gender presidential thing, is not even so much that I want a woman president, even though that would be, there's a part of me
Right.
that would be satisfied by that. But it's more that I actually don't think that we have that many young politicians who are truly driven by ideological, like an ideological mission in the way that she is, that have her level of talent and her, like, and not,
We are not spoiled for
we
choice.
are not spoiled for choice. And I, if it's not her, we are going to end up with, I'm sorry, a lot of people who are there for their careers and not for what they can do. Because, and this has always been the problem with the Democrats, is that so often what we end up with are these kind of soulless careerists, and it's whether it's the Pete Buttigieg's or the Gavin Newsoms, or, I'm sorry, Kamala Harris too. Kamala Harris does not have a strong ideological, she has no ideological argument for why she wants to be president. She just is like, I would be good at being president, so I should be president. And I have a kind of, liberal, like kind of a floating liberal,
Liberal-esque.
yeah, ideology, but it's not like AOC is actually driven by and she's a social democrat and she wants social democratic policies in the United States, which is what I want. And if if we on the left and the progressive side, if we don't if we don't back her, we don't really I don't know who,
Well,
maybe Jen
personally, in
Powell.
my view, the two questions are related: the woman electing a woman, and what you're saying about ideology, because um, I feel like it's sort of the other way around. We sort of want, when we were trying to elect Hillary Clinton, and thought we would, and um, that was going to be the proof. That was going to be the proof that the center could hold and that we could um, elect a woman. And the fact that we didn't means that was a center, but we're not drawing the right conclusions from what that means. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean, and what a lot of Democrats seem to concluded, like the ones you named, are we've got to keep chasing that elusive center until we find it, until we can bring, instead of pushing, right, everybody further to the left where we can actually get things done. I mean, it's a very overused example, but, the last person who really did something from the left in a big, big way, looked at the institutions of how can I make them do what I want them to do. And it seems like Democrats are asking the other way around. They've been the party of defending the status quo also institutionally, because that's the only way they know how to get things done. If things change too radically, they aren't going to know where they are anymore. As you say, AOC is somebody who takes her North Star from somewhere else. She doesn't take it from procedure. She doesn't
No.
take it from this is the way we've always done it. She takes it from this is what I want to achieve,
Yes.
and I'm going to bend. I'm not going to break, but I'm going to bend things to my will until I get the result that I want. And
Yeah.
that's, I think, what people also really want. Honestly, it's not exactly what Trump does, but it's a little bit the talk that he talks,
Yes.
right? He says, you know, we're going to find a way. I mean, even this week when his tariffs were taken away, he just immediately turned around and said, "Well, then I'll just do it another way." I mean, it's illegal.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I just think, of course, it's silly to be talking about 2028, or really 2027 is when most of the die will be cast with all this stuff. But I do feel like um, there's something in the public discourse on the left and from the center left all the way to the far left that has not really grappled with the fact that our analysis of the way gender interacted with those elections is is pretty faulty, because
yes.
I ultimately think, and I always thought, that Kamala Harris was helped by the fact that she was a black woman, because
Mm-hmm.
I think that it actually gave some excitement to people. It did for me, like, oh my God, we could beat Donald Trump with a black woman. Like the some
Yeah.
symbolism of it actually was did give people energy. And it was the moral weight of the genocide in Gaza. I think this, which that's another thing we haven't talked about, is is that freaking DNC report that they keep suppressing, and that so little things are getting leaked here and there. And of course, it's all
Oh
about Gaza.
dear.
We all knew it
Yes.
was about Gaza. But you have to like this whole thing of like, well, she has to be a senator first. It's like we live in Donald Trump's world. You think someone
Get
has to
over
be
your
a
imposter
senator first?
syndrome
And like,
yesterday.
and whether that is her or not, I'm so tired of this like credentialism, and like it has to, we're going to mark this and this, and well, it's a swing state governor who is popular, and it's like that's not how anything
Uh,
works. It
right,
never
but
works.
they're afraid. Talk about fear. That's fear. They're afraid of it not working that way,
Yeah.
because then where are we? Then it's chaos. It's anarchy. Um, but I think yes, I for libtards like us, of course, it was exciting to have um, the prospect of beating Donald Trump with the. But I think for people who are more ideologically driven, she didn't have the cred. She didn't.
No, she
She
didn't.
just looking that way and being a woman. That's not enough. Are
It's
you
not.
working for the interests of these populations? And I mean, but to your point, our understanding of how gender has played into these is so shallow and so uh, we're really not ready for that conversation. It gets back to what we were saying about trans populations being targeted. I mean, this is so much about. So in the end, I'm not sure, that her being a woman, or a black woman did help. because
Oh,
it didn't
I don't think it I think that it started in the beginning with the like the
the
possibility
excitement.
the coconuts and the young
How many
people.
days was it? 77? What was
I don't know. Maybe.
but yeah, but I mean the cult of masculinity around Trump, who is the goofiest, least masculine guy I can imagine. Um, but it's certainly about rape culture.
Yeah.
It's certainly about forcing people to do things they don't want to do. It's about making people scared. It's
Yeah.
about violence. It's about
Yeah.
using the violence of the state.
Hmm.
And you know, we do live in a patriarchy, and that is
Yes.
what it's run on.
Yeah, and
And
I mean yeah, and I mean I do have to say like it's not that I don't think I mean I definitely think that a woman is going to face special obstacles. And it's clear already
sure,
that look at how differently AOC is treated compared to Zora Mamdani.
right.
And, so there's definitely a way,
When their talent is very comparable.
and their talent is very comparable.
Yeah.
And I do think there's a way in which it's a very logical thing to just say, I am not going to support that because I can't put up with that anymore. But I'm like, my feeling is that we do not, like you said, we don't have a lot of talent. Like, I don't even want to I
Yeah.
don't want to prove something
It's
about
not
election.
about that,
It's
right?
not about that. It's like I'm looking around and I'll go along with whatever. But if we get a Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris in
Oh,
there,
don't
we are
even.
going to have Tucker for the rest of his life.
Gavin Newsom is disqualified in my book already because of the trans issue. If you are not going to stand up for trans people, you are not my
Yeah.
guy. No
No,
way. Not
no,
our guy, and not just my guy. That's my personal preference, of course, and I will proudly state that, but that's not my point. You can't win. You cannot win
no.
against MAGA if you are not prepared to be the anti-MAGA on every conceivable level. And in that sense, I do think being a woman wouldn't hurt, and quite the opposite. I mean, we were right to be excited about beating Trump
No.
with a woman because if you play your cards right, you have more credibility. You're maybe less likely to be part of rape culture. Not 100%. We have our Ghislaine Maxwell's, but
Yeah.
that's certainly not AOC. So,
No,
if you have the personality, you have the talent, and she has personality
it
to
does.
burn, to
Yes.
burn. I still think like you, I think she is one of our top talents. I can't even really think of anyone who's in second place. I am perfectly willing to believe that there are people we don't
Yeah.
know yet.
I'm ready for anything, but I feel like um if you are if you're a person who's on the left or a progressive, you got to have her back right now because
Yes.
you cannot be a part of the bullshit that you, the thing about AOC. And the reason I think she's more serious than Bernie. I think she's a more serious politician. I think she's
Hmm.
in like an Elizabeth Warren, where she
Hmm.
understands the levels, that she understands how to build coalitions. She
Yes.
understands what you can do with government to change things. And Bernie understands some of those things, but he's also, kooky and bad at staffing and all those things that we know. So I think that she, as we know, the CEOs, the money people, were always more scared of Warren than of Bernie. Not
Hmm.
because Warren is more to the left of Bernie, but because Warren knew
Knows
how
how
to
to
do
do
things.
things.
And I think that AOC is of that tradition of
I agree.
knowing how to do things. So they are going to go after her with everything they have. And they have been already because she doesn't have Gavin Newsom, Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg. There are rich people who have their numbers, they have those people on speed dial.
Hmm.
And that just changes. That changes who you are. If you are a politician who can be reached by very, very rich people, you are different. And this is even though Pete Buttigieg is very smart, and I think that he actually has like a analysis of what needs to be done with the Supreme Court that I think is right and all these things. I don't trust him because I know that he is on the speed dial of very, very rich people. And
Well,
we
that's the other another way that AOC reminds me of Warren is
yes,
that one of the reasons I do trust her and she has credibility is she was a real person and was a working person in America and knows what that's like and can speak to it and can translate that experience into political terms, and understands it at a visceral level that
yes,
most politicians simply don't.
yeah.
I
So
think.
I don't know. I mean we'll see what I mean I know we're now like there might be a freaking war with Iran. Why are we talking about 2028? And I understand that, but
Well,
I
we're not only talking about 2028. We are,
we are.
but we're talking about the leaders. Who are the leaders of this
Who are the
party?
leaders?
Because they seem to be without a head at the moment,
Yeah,
which is extremely unfortunate. I
yeah,
mean, there are some governors, not Newsom. I mean, he has obviously been stepping up and doing some things that people like, but I'm thinking um, Pritzker is kind of swinging again, coming out and um, sort of challenging Trump to a fight. I wish there were more governors and in a more organized fashion,
yeah,
more Democratic governors who would get together. There's too much aiming for the center.
yeah.
That,
Yeah, it's
but
going to be
all
very
right,
interesting.
spark
Yeah.
of hope. AOC is still a spark of hope. There are a few others. Anything else that's been good?
I mean, I mean, I cannot get that freaking. I know I'm saying the opposite now, but I cannot get that freaking story about that. The Rohingya refugee in Buffalo who I don't know.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's the
Go there.
opposite.
The opposite, the opposite. But I do think that there continues to be real organizing against this, and I just people that do that give me hope. Like we've been having these vigils, and
Mhm.
people I think it people feel called to do things, and so it's dark times in so many. I mean, like in one way, it's like okay, one like hope part is that obviously Donald Trump lost his big tariffs fight in
Mhm.
the Supreme Court, and he's obviously very unpopular. He does not have, he's this whole thing. It was very fun to watch these stupid hockey guys get their, get.
Too.
I mean, doofuses, and see them get their just desserts on the internet and everything. So, like, there is a real backlash, and he does have less ability to move than he did before, but it still is so little, and he still has so much. So I don't know, the people always are the ones that give me
The
the
people, the people.
people.
Absolutely. Yeah, and as we were saying, the people who I do think, as we were saying before, that Americans are not indifferent to their identity as Americans. They're not, I know it's easy to criticize um, our compatriots for ignoring a lot of this, sticking their head in the sand, not following the news, although really, who can blame anyone for not following the news right now? But when push comes to shove, I think they do care. Of course, we were sorely disappointed by the results of the last election. I mean, I really did think that when push came to shove, most people would not want to pull the lever for that man again. Um, Hope springs eternal that when they've really, really seen now undeniably not only his true colors, but what he will do to this country if left in the position that he's in, And I
Yeah.
mean, again, not to get too tinfoil hat, but if he's alive, I don't see him relinquishing power voluntarily.
No, not voluntarily. It's whatever's going to happen is probably going to make January 6th look pretty minor. But I
Right.
mean, this is why it's so important. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever. We'll talk about it next time. We should try, well, because I've got the vigil next week, but then we could talk after the vigil. Um, and
Yes, that would be great. We should
that'd
talk
be
about it
good.
after the vigil next week. Is there anything you think people should read or listen to? Anything you would recommend right now? I'm having honestly a harder and harder time. I used to, I listen to a lot of podcasts, I follow a lot of podcasts, and I'm scrolling, going, I don't want to listen to that. I don't want to hear that. It's getting harder
I mean, I think that oh wait, oh sorry.
and
You
harder
went
to
you went
find.
silent for a second, but now you're back.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
I think it was just the internet. No, but no, I'm with you. I'm having such a hard time. I mean, I have my comfort podcast that I just like to have on when I'm cleaning or
Sure.
whatever. And, but yeah, the last thing that I listened to or even read that was really interesting, I can't even, I'm feeling very like blah about everything.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll give people one thing to read that is actually not very political. It is an article written by our mutual, Jane Ruffino.
Oh, that's right. Of course,
She,
that wonderful
so I saw this
article.
article. It's a feature story in Wired magazine, and
Oh,
which and is on undersea cables. And I know she's writing on this, so I thought I looked at the. Oh, I think I'm going to send this article to Jane, and then I saw that she had written it.
and she's
So,
very involved in doing the vigils, as she's been
oh,
doing.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So everybody go read Jane's article.
Yes,
When I post
definitely.
this, I will link to her article, and it's just something, it's really well written. It's a great story. It's
Yeah.
just like
It's the
something about how our world works,
perfect thing for this moment.
right?
Yeah.
Yes. It's not sticking your head in the sand, but also not engaging with a lot with all the shit they're trying to flood the zone with.
Yeah.
So good counter in the attention economy.
Yes.
All right. Well, great
Perfect.
talking to you,
Perfect.
Liz, as
Oh, it's so nice to talk to
always.
you too.
See
Yeah.
you next week.
Bye.
Bye.